Hello, family.
Hello.
It is Saturday again,
Yes.
and we are back. We ain't worried about no holidays. Holidays, they come and they go. But hello, hello, hello. Happy Saturday afternoon. Happy Saturday evening.
Mhm.
Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. Whatever you want to call the day, I hope that you are happy in it. And I pray that your joy is not dependent on the circumstances and that your gratitude is for yesterday's victories and the victories that are still to come.
Mhm.
And I hope that you will always, always, always have peace on your journey, wherever it is that God leads you. That is the freedom. And that's the freedom that we want for everybody, that God wants for all of us. So happy Freedom Day,
Yes.
however you choose to look at that. So come on in, come on in, come on in. You know how this works. Tag a sister, share your page, get a Ram brother on the horn and say, hey, Papa Joe and Mama B, Mother Barbara are on. So come on in the room, come on in the room, come on in the room. Like I said last week, take your shoes off and set a spell. My name is Barbara Milburn,
And I'm Joe Milburn.
and together we are
Team
Team
Milburn.
Milburn. And if you have never seen us before, I want you to drop a number 1 in the chat so that we can come back later on and recognize you and say hello and thank you for coming. If you have been following us every Saturday since December when we first started this, then drop a 0 in the chat because you really are our heroes. It is because of you that we keep coming back, and it's because of you that the numbers that we need to kind of judge our content carry on because you guys carry us.
Thank
So thank you. We appreciate you. We appreciate you more than you know. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to just pay honor to Dr. Dunamis D, my pastor, my mentor, my friend, my sister, my daughter. She is a woman of God who has been uh, guiding us, not just me, us,
us.
along this kingdom journey. And we are so grateful for her. It is she and her daughter, Ariel Fuller, who are the owner and co-owners of Black and Married with Kids. That's the platform that you're on right now. And it's because of them that we have this opportunity to just come in and sit a spell and talk to you, exchange thoughts and ideas. And so today we are going to talk about freedom talk. What were you really thinking? Are there times in your relationship with your mate, with your husband? And like I said last week, relationships don't always have to be tied to husband and wife. We are marriage over 70. So we're always talking about marriage, but you can take what we give you and apply it to other relationships. So we want to know, when you are looking at your mate, and maybe they're staring off into space. Maybe you ask them a question and they're just not responding. I'll tell you this little joke in a minute. Um, they're just not responding. And so in your mind, you're thinking, what were they thinking? And so today, our talk is not just about freedom of a nation. That's what everybody else is talking about. We're talking about freedom in a marriage and having freedom to tell the truth no matter what the consequences, and still be okay with that, because people always assume that consequences are negative, but there are positive consequences too. So ask your mate, what were you really thinking? um when you were silent, what went across your mind? When I asked you that last question, what went across your mind? Did you say what you were really thinking? Well, did you hold that back for a later time? I know me personally, and I can only speak for myself. I know that most of the time, let me back it up a minute. My sister will tell you in a minute what comes up, comes out. I have learned for me and for me personally, my first thought is not usually the best thought. It might even really be what I want to say, but it might not be the most diplomatic way to say it. because sometimes it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. You can have a tone that's abrupt. Your thought pattern could have been interrupted, all of a sudden, and you just, ooh, so you're shifted from one thing to the other. You don't pivot quite as quickly as you would like to. So sometimes I'm quiet just because I need a little bit of time to think about it. Mm-hmm. And before I let Joe talk, when I said I wanted to tell you this joke, I thought about my grandson when him and his sisters were living with us many years ago when they were young and in elementary school. But Joe and I were sitting in the living room and we were talking. I don't even know what we were talking about. That was a long time ago. But anyway, my grandson got up and he came to the door in between the kitchen and the living room where we were sitting, and he asked us a question. Now, whatever that question was, I looked at Joe, Joe looked at me, and neither one of us said anything. So my grandson says, "Oh, I get it. All systems must be busy now. I'll come back later." So a lot of times we think about some of the things that the children say when they were children, because children don't have no filter. It's just coming out and they're going to tell you exactly what they mean. Mm-hmm. But before I go any further, I'm going to give Joe a chance to talk. And let me do this one more time for anybody who may have just joined us. I'm Barbara Milburn.
And I'm Joe Milburn.
Together we make Team Milburn. And today we're having a freedom talk. We are talking about those things that we ponder on when we want to know what our mate is really thinking, but sometimes we may not have enough nerve to ask, because a lot of times we don't want to know the answers, but we want to know. Mm-hmm. So, Joe, what you think?
What I think, what I be thinking is really, I don't know. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to start out like that. If I look back on the very beginning, my thoughts were simple. Looking on our wedding day, I was thinking about the future, about adventure, about dreams we were going to be chasing. That was the high energy kind of thinking. But as the years turned, then life set in. I call that the middle years, where we build on our marriage, Uh-huh. Okay, we had careers, we had mortgages, we was raising kids, we were navigating unexpected curveballs and fastballs of life. In this season, marriage became a masterclass of logic and teamwork, because things would drop on you quite fast. For instance, when the kids came.
Yeah, I always wanted to know, I don't know if we've talked about that in this setting or not, mm-hmm. But when Joe and I were, I don't know how old we were. We were in our 40s, I believe, because we're talking 1996 or 7.
97.
97. Mm-hmm. And I do remember the setting. We were sitting in our living room talking to a sister friend of mine who, at the time, her son was going to the school right down the street from us. And sometimes when she would pick him up, she would stop by just to chew the fat. Yeah, not, nothing serious, just to say hello, hi, I was by your house and I didn't want to just go. But we were sitting there and all of a sudden here comes this lady that we didn't know, had never seen before, with 3 kids that I immediately recognized as my grandchildren. She said to us in a roundabout way, you have like 20 minutes to make up your mind. And if you can't take them, because you are the last resort, and if you can't take them, then I'm sorry, but they just gonna have to go into the system. Now, I'm looking at Joe and he looking at me, and what I'm going to ask Joe now is, what were you really thinking? Because I was really scared. My mind was spinning. Okay, I don't want this to happen. But what is this going to do to our relationship? We didn't have time to talk about it. There was no time. We had to make a decision. So in 20 minutes.
I was thinking, first thing I said, we have to do it because I didn't want them to go into the system, and we had to do it no matter what. We had to make our adjustment or pivot, so that we can accommodate the kids, even though they spent
A lot of time here. Yeah, they were always on the weekends.
We was familiar with them, and even in their little activities, their little fun play and whatever they do, we was
always a part of it.
Right. And before I want them to go into the system, I had to take it. Was saying we have to do it. I wasn't thinking, because as I'm talking now, that could have been me. Because when I was 6, my brother was 11. Uh, our parents died, and my aunt stepped up and took us before we went to the system. And that right now just resonated. That's why I made that quick decision, I guess, not knowing why I was doing it.
So it was because of what you had experienced when your mother and father passed away that in a sense had made your heart tender to that situation. So in your mind, there was no other choice but to just do it.
Right. Before you let them go into the system.
Right.
The system back then was a little different than the system now. Now they will go to any relative and ask them would they take the children. That's
back then they would just snatch your children up and they were gone. And then once they were in the system, you really had to turn some cartwheels to get them back, if you ever got them back at all.
True.
And at the time, their father, which is my son, was incarcerated, I believe. And I'm not really sure where their mom was at the time because their lifestyle was in the streets. They were in and out of different prison systems. They were on and off of drugs. And the lady who was really caring for them was their great grandmother. And she was actually up in age. She was 80 something at that time. And she did the best she could. She really did. But that's one of the reasons why I would go and get them every weekend, because between her and myself, I worked. Joe worked. He had just retired. We couldn't have them like she could. So she handled them all week. We would come get them on the weekend. That would give her a break. And that's how we handled that situation. But somebody decided to drop a dime and talk about the way she cared for them. But she couldn't do no better than what she was doing. And she was doing better than the mother and father was doing because they wasn't in the situation at all. But I believe that now looking back, the maturity of our marriage allows us to look at those kinds of things and see them in a different eyesight. And when I speak about maturity in a marriage, I have to say this, and I know this has had really nothing to do with marriage over 70, but in a sense, it does have a lot to do with freedom. And when I say we, the Dunamis family, we have several platforms that we frequent. One of them is Healing for My Soul, which is a Facebook group, a private Facebook group. But also attached to that is another portion of it, which comes on the YouTube channel. And they have a podcast, but it's a visual, it's a taped podcast. It's not like us being live. This is where the seasons have been pre-recorded and then they come out one weekend at a time. And every Saturday at 11 o'clock, a new episode drops. And today's episode, which I'm sorry, I cannot remember the title, but what I'm getting at was that the young lady was talking to Dr. Dunamis D. Dr. D was interviewing her in a sense, and she talked about the narcissistic tendencies in her mate and how these tendencies used to send her over the roof. But she had to come to realize by the Holy Spirit that those same tendencies that she saw in him, she had in her. And what the Holy Spirit showed her she had to do was to learn how to respond in love instead of reacting in pain. Because every time she reacted in pain, it was like a tug of war between her and her mate, back and forth, like you're in a rocking chair and you rocking and rocking and rocking. You just going back and forth, going back and forth, but you're not going nowhere. You stand in the same spot. It wasn't until she realized that what's getting on my nerves so bad about him is what I see in me. And I need to learn how to react to it a different way. And once she surrendered to Christ and started doing that, she saw a whole different side of the relationship from the same man that before all she was getting was flack because of the way she thought about it. And it's just that maturity in your relationships. You know, we think about the victories that we have won.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like throughout the course of the years that Joe and I have been together, he's been in the hospital, I've been in the hospital, he's been sick, I've been sick. But it's not too often that God lets us both get sick together.
Yes.
It's usually one of us is well enough to take care of the other, even during COVID. Joe had it so bad that he was in the hospital. I got it too, but I didn't have to go into the hospital because his nurse shared what he was doing with Joe and would tell me what to do from home. But as soon as they released him and he heard my voice, he knew that I was sicker than I was letting on. And he made his way to take care of me until I could get better. So it's always a back and forth. We think about the times that we have laughed about something that was so funny to us. I mean, we cracking up, got tears rolling down our cheeks, and somebody sitting over there heard the same thing that we heard, but they like, well, what's funny? And we done took a backstory that we can relate to, and we just cracking up because the things that we think about sometimes are like this, because we've been together for such a long time, and it's not that we're like reading each other's minds, it's just that we can relate to these things that happened way back then, and even take and put them in common day situations and relate. Because sometimes we have, and I tell my grandson this all the time because he and I chat a lot, even though he's incarcerated and they saying that he's gonna get 30 years, but the devil is a liar, and I ain't finished with one about that. But we talk all the time, and I tell him, I said, we have some of the biggest laughs talking about some of the things that you guys did as kids, that you know, it's almost like a comedy show. If we can replay it back. We with the boys in the hood or whatever you wanted to call it, but what was that? Bang Bang Kids, they don't die, they multiply.
Yeah.
That's the warrior spirit of a great marriage. It isn't a battleground where we're constantly arguing against each other, trying to see who's going to win, whose pride is going to give up first. Because real freedom in the marriage is not winning an argument. It's creating a relationship where the truth is safe to tell.
And I'm going to change the direction a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about the 4th of July years ago.
Okay. Long time ago.
Long time ago. You know, every 4th of July, we would have a cookout.
Just about.
Just about every 4th of July, we would have a cookout.
My brother, he was called Sam. He called today, and he was saying, "Y'all cooking out?" And I said, "No, man, them days is gone."
But this particular 4th of July, we had everybody in the house, and they was in the backyard, and the food was already done, and it was about 6, 7 o'clock, and Gary come in.
Oh, that was when the twins were born.
Yes.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We talked about that this morning too, and I laughed because Joe's recollection of how it happened, where everybody was sitting and what we were doing, and my recollection of how it happened where everybody was sitting. It was like two totally different. I remembered us being in the living room downstairs. Joe remember him being in the backyard cooking because he was the cook. But whichever way it was, Gary came running down and he said, Mama, Renee done had two babies. So I don't know if that was a surprise. I mean, he acted like it was a surprise for him too. We knew she was due, but we wasn't expecting her to have the baby on the 4th of July. We actually, forgive me, Lord, thought that she was plotting and planning to keep Gary from being with the family at the cookout at that particular time. Because did they call and say she was in the house?
I don't know.
I don't really even remember, but I know he was here with us. There wasn't too many opportunities that Gary was giving up to get some food. I don't really care what was going on. And Joe was barbecuing, and he wasn't leaving. I'm sorry, he was not leaving. So whatever was going on, he wasn't feeling it. But honestly, guys, I ask you today, when your mate is off in la la land, we said we are going to tell you guys this too. Keep some pennies in your pocket. Because years back, we would say a penny for your thoughts. And most of the time, the people didn't tell you what they were thinking. They would either lie, which a lot of us still do, lie, or just walk away and smile and chuckle to themselves because they felt like that conversation was privy to themselves, but not to the person that answered. But just penny for your thoughts. And have your penny in your hand when you ask him. Joe asked me yesterday, he had his penny. I did tell him no, but this morning he came upstairs and gave me my penny. You'd be surprised how many pennies. I mean, they ain't worth much now. Maybe we should change it to a nickel for your thoughts, or a quarter, or something.
Because of inflation?
Yeah, because pennies ain't worth. They cost 4 cents.
To
You gotta
make.
pay for 4 cents to make one. So it ain't worth much. But the next time your spouse does something that makes you roll your eyes, take a deep breath and smile. Just smile. And before you fly off the handle and say something mean or derogatory or spiteful, sometimes we can be spiteful. Just take a deep breath. And it ain't about, because sisters have come to me and say, well, so does that mean that you always got to be silent and swallow how you feel? Is being submissive in a sense, letting the man punk you out. I don't know what other word is. And I don't really believe that it's about that either, because just like I said last week, if you pray about it and genuinely pray about it and be sincere when you go to God and say you really believe your mate is wrong, tell God, I believe they are wrong, and explain why you think that they are wrong. If they're really wrong, God is going to convict them, but be ready, because if it ain't them and it's you, he's going to come back and he's going to let you know too. Sometimes it's instantaneously. As soon as you ask, boom, you'll get a vision. What you see?
Just reading.
Oh, that's okay. Benita, one of my biggest fans. Hi, Benita. I see you in a couple weeks, right? I need my hug, sister. I need my hug. But just take a breath, breathe. As Kathy said in the podcast today, maturity. That's one of the things that I believe I'm getting through Pastor D and her teachings, among other things. Kingdom principles, which I never knew, much less understood. But they grow you up. They stop letting you be the little girl or the little boy who always has to have his way. And you know how kids are when they can't have their way, how they get. Oh my God, they act up, they kick, and they're worse now than they used to be back in the day, because back in the day, our parents didn't put up with that mess. Now that the parents, they look at the children and they act like they don't know what to do with them, and they let them have their little temper tantrums. Or sometimes they'll put them in the room and tell them they're going to have a timeout. Them children ain't no more worried about their timeout than the man in the moon. And I can tell you this, and I've heard Glenda, Dr. G, say this a lot on her Mom's Minute that she has on Mondays. You can preach till you blue in your face, but they're not going to do what they hear. They're going to do what they see.
Yes. Amen.
They're going to do what they see. Now, Joe, you look like you got something you want to say. You got something?
You go ahead.
No?
You're doing good. You're doing good.
Okay, so
I'm just going to tell you about when I was daydreaming. I do that often. A lot of times it's not nothing negative. It's stuff that I'd be thinking about that, like, we made it through the storms, and in one piece. We still have our sanity,
thank the Lord
Yes, yes, yes.
for a reasonable portion of it, right?
And we made it through this up and down and that up and down. We just working with God on our side.
God on our side, like we say, in us.
In us.
In the earth, in us.
We
made from the earth. And he's working in us every day.
Every day. And I just be daydreaming how it could have been.
Oh Lord, it could have won a whole lot of
Yes. And I'm so thankful that I made it through with somebody on my side that really loves the Lord and loves me, because I know it takes a lot to put up with her. The sisters are dunamis. I heard that. But Lord, it takes a lot for me too. And we go through things.
One of my dunamis sisters, and I will not mention her name, but whenever she talks, we talk on the phone and she'll say, "How's my brother doing?" And I'll say, "He doing okay." She said, "I need to shake that man's hand because God knows I know he had to go through it." Now that's my sister, right? He had to go through a lot to put up with you, but it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. But we coming through it together. Together.
We're not racing one in front of the other.
No, we're not choosing you was wrong, I was wrong.
No.
We choose each other.
Daily.
Daily.
So listen, guys. Once again, I want to do my recap of who comes and goes throughout the course of the week, because as always, we get to talking and laughing and it's almost time to go. But I want to first of all tell you about our team of presenters that come throughout the week. And on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Quarter J comes. Her topic is praying wise, and Quarter always has a really interesting topic. So if you are a wife who is praying for your mate, your husband, or your significant other, your brother, you can take these same prayers and her situations and use them for your benefit. You're going to get a nugget out of everything that you watch. And I always say that. People will say to me sometimes when I say that we're on the Black and Married with Kids platform, they was like, "Well, I'm not married. I don't have kids." Well, we don't have kids either. We ain't had no kids in a long, long, long time. But the same things that we talk about, we can still use them with our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and even our great-great-grandchildren. And the things that we tell you, if you got children, you can apply them to your kids or your grandchildren. So, and Mama D says, get it on the clearance rack. You ain't always got to experience everything, because we learn so much from experience. The book knowledge, that's good.
Yes.
I ain't knocking it, but you can have all the book knowledge in the world. If you ain't got no street sense and you ain't got no knowledge that comes from experience on how things work personally, that book ain't really going to do you a whole lot of good, because if you can learn and write down and quote and all that, but if you ain't learned how to apply it, like what's that phrase Mama D uses all the time? Repetition is necessary until application is
when application is lacking.
Thank you. Repetition is necessary when application is. See my Ram? He quoted that. You hear that, Mama D? Yeah, boy.
I'm listening.
He be here hustling, but it's all good. It's all good. So, Monday is Dr. G, 12 noon, with a Mom's Minute. And then at 7 p.m. on Mondays come the Bookers. Their main topic is infidelity. Then on Tuesday, we have the Whitfields, right? Pastor Stan and Pastor Gail, they come at 8 p.m. Their theme is faith in marriage. And they're both pastors. They're both going to come to you with a strong word from the Lord. They're going to show you where it is, or can show you where it is. And they will tell you from their personal experience how that has worked in their relationship. So that's Tuesday. On Wednesday, nobody comes. On Thursdays, it's the Dr. Garrett White and his wife, Lisa. Their main topic is communication. And then Friday, there's nobody. And then Joe and I are back again on Saturdays. And I want to say this too before I go. I spoke a little bit about the podcast that dropped every Saturday and that they were a part of Healing for My Soul. Well, as part of Dunamis Woman LLC, we are having our annual gathering coming up in July. It's July the 23rd through the 25th in Atlanta, Georgia. And I am honored to be one of the guest speakers this year. So if you're in the Atlanta area, please get you a ticket so that you can come. The things that we talk about, the things that we have learned that help you to mature in Christ are the things that we study in Dunamis. These are things that in all of the years that I went to church, I didn't know. And I sometimes it makes me a little angry, but then I always say God is not surprised at where I'm at. Mm-hmm. So God needed me to know these things in this era of time, mm-hmm. and not 30 or 40 years ago. Now, me personally, I think, well, Dad, God, if you had told me that earlier, I could be a whole lot better off or further in my growth. Mm-hmm. But if that had happened, I wouldn't be talking to you guys. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be sharing what I know with you, because I would be off somewhere else, maybe even thinking I was pompous and all that, in the quote unquote bougie club, mm-hmm. and ain't got time for none of y'all. So God put me where he needed me to be in order for me to get what I needed to get, mm-hmm. so that I could deliver it to the audience that he wanted me to deliver it to. None of that is by accident. All of that is by God's plan. Yeah.
So before we go, I just want to thank each and every one of y'all that's here live with us. Thank you for sharing your 4th of July with us.
Tawana and Derek stayed.
And I want to make special thanks to Tawana and Derek. Derek's my Ram brother.
Yay.
Thank you, brother, for hanging in there with me.
Yay. And I want to say this because I didn't give you this part. If you're interested in registering for our conference coming up July 23rd through 25th, for the ladies, for my sisters, it's www.dunamiswoman.com. For the Ram brothers, it's www.ramconference.com. Ram starts for Real Authoritative Men, because that's what we got, real authoritative men. And it's never too late to turn things around. It's never too late for your growth to continue. We should never stop learning. We should always keep going on and on and on. And I'm going to say this one last thing, and then we're going to leave. Today, we are celebrating freedom. But our prayer, Joe and I's prayer, is that every marriage listening experiences another kind of freedom. The freedom to forgive, the freedom to be understood, the freedom to laugh again, and the freedom to love without keeping score. With that being said, we borrowed this from Maisha and Booker. Like, subscribe. See you next week.